Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, depending on whichever part of the world you are tuning in from. And I'm so grateful for life and thankful to be here with you here this morning as we are going to be taking a fresh new look at the financial market today. In fact, I'm so excited to welcome you to our first edition of the Extreme Speed Live for the new week. I do hope you all had a wonderful weekend and happy new week to you all. And before we begin, let's confirm that we are good to go this morning. So I would like to see some feedback. If you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly without distortion, please let me know in the comment section, as this will give us a confirmation that we are all on the same page here. So I would like to see some feedback, please, if you can hear me and you can see my screen. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Okay, I'm just trying to load up the comment box. So, okay, so we have a handful of comments here. Good morning to you, 9890. Thank you very much. 6416 855 9. Okay, all right, 847. Abdul 2, good morning to you. Thank you very much. Votuan, good morning to you. Susie NB, good morning. Can 786 and Carrie, good morning to you, Carrie. Glad to have you around. So I will take this as a positive feedback that we are good to go this morning. My own name is Sharif Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I'm going to be your host as we are going to be evaluating the financial market. And in fact, in preparation for this week, I have done an extensive price action based analysis on all of the assets that I will be projecting to you this morning. In fact, I have like 5 financial assets to look out for. I'm utilizing simple and fundamental parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and of course chart patterns to identify potential trading opportunities ahead of today's trading session. Well, for those who are joining us for the first time, you might be asking that what is it that you are doing here, or what is it that we do here? Well, we come together as a community in anticipation of both the New York and of the New York session, of course, as we review our positions, that is, if we still have any existing positions, and of course, strategically position ourselves in such a way that we can catch any potential trading opportunity ahead of the New York session. And we do this on a daily basis, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, and I will encourage you to stay tuned in and be part of our subsequent session, as the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works, and you will be able to eventually use the information you have gathered here to make your own independent trading decisions on your own account. So once again, you are welcome on board. Now, with that being said, here we shall be diving right into the business for today. And as usual, the first thing we are going to be doing is to keep tabs with the fundamental factors that drive price action. And by now, for those who have been with me, we know how important this is, as these fundamental factors often manifest on the charts in technical patterns and price movements. By monitoring the economic calendar, we can easily identify potential correlations between key economic releases and, of course, specific technical patterns, hereby giving us valuable information that will help us to strategically position ourselves in such a way that we can capitalize on any potential move prior, during, and even after the event. Now, on the economic calendar, we normally focus on high impact economic events from the economies that affect the assets on our watch list. And since we already have a handful of assets, we have going to be looking at the United States, the pounds, the United Kingdom, and of course the Japanese economy on this one. Now, looking at what we have here on Monday, August 21, we really do not have any high impact event. And in fact, I even went further to include the medium impact event, which of course still does not have any from the economists on my watch list. And that reminds me, for those who since today is the first day of the week, if you have any assets or you have any, be it cryptocurrency, currency pairs, commodity, or options you want us to look at, feel free to drop them in the comment section. And if you drop them, I will try to incorporate it into my plans for this week. And of course, if we can analyze it, we will continue to monitor that asset throughout the course of the week. So let me know if you have any in the comment section. So with that being said here, let's dive right into the business. Now, the first assets we are going to be taking on this morning is going to be the US All Spot. Now, on the US All Spot, I already have a buy position running right now, and let's run through what is looking like on the higher time frame. So on the higher time frame, this is what we were able to see. So I think we started the analysis on the daily time frame. Okay, no, not the daily time frame. So we are going to shine our focus on the 4 hours time frame. Now, on the 4 hours time frame, what I did here was to take into consideration the nature of price action since the mid-month of June. And the first thing you will observe here is that it is quite clear that this market has been on a very strong bullish momentum as price action continues to find higher highs and higher lows since the mid-month of June. And I took a step further to connect the series of higher lows here to emphasize the strength of the buyers at this point in time. And in fact, we have a couple of trend lines which has been supporting that bullish momentum. Now, besides the trend line here, if we zoom in to the nature of price action since the beginning of this month, you will see that price action had remained above the $78.50 level. As you will see, every attempt by the sellers to break through the structure has been met with strong resistance from the buyers, hereby giving us an insight into how strong the buyers are around this area. And during the course of last week's trading session, we agreed that as long as price remains above this level, we will continue to hold on to a bullish bias. Now, to help us guide our trading activity for this week, I was able to identify a couple of levels here. I have the $81 area and of course the $80 level. So it's like a range right now, as this zone has been a major determinant of price action since the beginning of this month. And depending on how price reacts to this level is likely going to determine where price will be heading towards this week. Then we have a descending trend line here. Remember last week we saw how price was retracing after testing that $84 area. So we have a descending trend line, which of course is going to be one of the major parameters we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today. And one interesting thing we saw on Friday last week was the breakout of that descending trend line, which for me is a sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to hold that negates that bullish momentum. So in this scenario here, you will see that following this impulsive move, we can see that price action appeared to have transitioned into what looks like a double bottom structure, which from a technical standpoint is a very, very strong reversal pattern. And whenever we have a reversal pattern like this, the next thing we want to be doing is to identify a neckline which we shall be using to guide our trading activity. So we want to see price break out of that neckline to give us a confirmation that the reversal pattern is valid. So if we look at the structure, I have a neckline situated at the $80.50 level, where a breakout of that structure will be all we need to confirm that this is a true reversal pattern. Now, looking at what happened here on Friday, we saw the breakout of that reversal pattern, and the fact that price remains above that ascending trend line was a good signal for me to join in the bullish move. So going into the new week right now, we have a level at the $81 area where I want to see price break out of that structure to give me an opportunity to buy. So with this information we have gathered on the 4 hours time frame, let's scale down into the lower time frame and see how the market has been reacting to that $80.50 level, the neckline area. Let me show you. So this is it right here. So we want to see how market participants had reacted to this neckline since the beginning of the week to decide what our next line of action will be. So now scaling down into the 1 hour time frame, this is what I was able to come up with this morning while trying to dissect the current market structure. Hold on a second, please. Let me appropriate this very well. Okay. And looking at this structure here, so we can see that the week has started on a very strong bullish momentum. So we have this. Hold on a second. So the highest point which price action has been for this week is the $81.40 level. So you do want to be marking out these levels on your chart. So we have the $81.40 level, which happens to be the highest point, and I actually bought above the $81 area. So at this point in time, we will hold on to a bullish bias. So for those who had missed out on this opportunity here, had the breakout of the $81 level, we can capitalize on more opportunities had the breakout of the $81.40 level. So you want to be positioning yourself above the $81 level. Anywhere above the $81.40 level seems most appropriate to join that bullish momentum. So at this point in time, I have two position triggered right here. And for those who are part of these opportunities, well done to you. Let's hope the price action will continue to the upside. So on this one, we hold on to a bullish bias on the USOILSPOT for today. And one more thing I would like to mention here is that we have an ascending trend line which will continue to guide our trading activity for this week. So this ascending trend line here, so what this simply means is that as long as price remains above that ascending trend line, we shall feel comfortable in our buy position. Now, there's one thing I would like to call our attention to that is likely going to happen today, and that is we could see a retracement happen. We could see, remember that when price got into the $81.40 level, we saw some selling pressure during the early hours of today. So we could still, the selling pressure could still persist where price could drop into the $81 level or the ascending trend line here. We shouldn't panic as this still falls in line with the uptrend continuation. So a retracement into this area with continued buy pressure will be all we need to be part of more trading opportunities in this market. So for this buy position, all stop losses should be below that descending trend line. Let's give enough room for price action to breach. So for those who will capitalize on this one, you have about 50 pips stop loss. And for those who will capitalize above the $81.40 level, you want to be having your stop losses below the $81 area. So that is how we are going to be buying the USOILSPOT for today. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunities, you know how we do it in this community. We also want to keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well. So in this case scenario, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers too. Remember, during the course of last week, it was more of selling the USOILSPOT, and at any point, sellers could still take over this market. So for us to consider selling here, what is it that we would like to see on this chart that will give us the idea or incite the idea of selling? Now, since we have an ascending trend line already where price is trading above it, a breakdown of the ascending trend line will be what we need to be part of a bearish move. Now remember that we are not going to be getting too excited, as we will need some confirmation before jumping into any sell position. Remember that the breakdown of the descending trend line could turn out to be a false breakdown. So what we want to see here are signs that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above that ascending trend line, which of course would reflect on the chart as price retesting either the $80.50 level or the ascending trend line to incite selling opportunities, so we can sell. Then a further breakdown of the $80 mark will welcome more selling opportunities. Now for the retest of structure, we shall be scaling down into the lower time frame. So as soon as we have the breakdown of that ascending trend line, we scale down to our lower time frame, like the 5, 10 or 15 minutes time frame, to look out for confirmation such as retest, continuous selling pressure before we jump into any sell position here. But I doubt if this will happen, but if it does happen, we shall be on standby to capitalize on that move. But at this point in time, we remain bullish. As long as price remains above that ascending trend line, we shall continue to look out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying these assets. So these are my views here on the US All Spot for today. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next instrument. And of course, you can take that time to mark out those levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your independent trading decisions. All right, so I can see a handful of comments. Momolok, good morning. Thank you for checking in. Nat Jeep, good morning to you. Marketer, good morning to you. Brother Ed, good morning. 407, good morning to you. And thank you for checking in. And I'm also very glad to have you guys around. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page here. So we shall be moving right into the next financial asset on our watch list for today. So the next asset on our watch list for today is the USTech100, which is popularly known as the NASDAQ. And in fact, I already have a buy position running at this point in time after capitalizing on that very strong impulsive move to the upside. Hold on a second, please. I want to... So before we go into the details of how we capitalize on this opportunity, I would like us to scale up into the higher time frame so that we can have an holistic perspective into what is really going on in the market right now. So I think I started from the daily time frame, where I was able to identify a trend line, a bullish trend line, of course. And since the beginning of the year, it's quite clear that price action has been bullish, as we have seen consistent and uniform higher highs and higher lows. And after connecting the series of higher lows here, we have an ascending trend line which has been supporting that momentum. And in fact, you know how we use our ascending trend line in this community. As long as price remains above that ascending trend line, we shall continue to look out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying. The only condition that will make us want to sell in this case scenario is for that ascending trend line to be breached and broken to the downside. But at this point in time, this trend line still remains very intact, hence we will continue to look out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying this asset. Now, when we scale down into a much more lower time frame to see, hold on a second, let me quickly show you something. Now look at where price action closed last week. Let me zoom right in so we can see things clearly. So you can see this was where price closed last week trading session, and in fact when price came into that zone, we saw some signs of buy pressure around that area, giving us clue of a potential incitation of bullish momentum around that area. Now, when we scale down into the 4 hours time frame, we begin to see things very, very clearly. Now, look at that area here, which I just showed you on the daily time frame. You will see, look at it right here. That is what I showed you on the daily time frame. Now, if we go to as far back as the month of June, you will see how that level had been a very strong buying niche in this market. Every attempt by the sellers to break through the structure has been met with strong resistance from the buyers, as you will see. It happened here in the month of June. We saw this happen again during the last week of the month of June, and right now during the previous week we saw our price action came back into that zone, giving us a beautiful confluence with that ascending trend line, giving us a sweet spot to look out for buying opportunities. Now, in addition to that area, we have a couple of descending trend lines. We have the channel, as you will see that since the beginning of this month, price action has been on a downtrend, giving us a descending channel, as you will see. So we have the support line of the channel, and we also have the resistance line of the channel. And interestingly, the support line of this channel, where we look out for buying opportunity, also shares a confluence with both the ascending trend line we identified on the higher time frame and that demand zone we identified here, where I also had to spot my key level to guide our trading activity for this week. So you'll see that we have a very crucial confluence here, which of course, depending on how participants in this market reacts to the zone, will determine where price action is likely going to be heading towards. Now, to help us guide our trading activity, I already have a key level situated at the 14,600, which we shall be using as a major parameter to guide our trading activity. Now, you know how we use our key level in this community. As long as price still remains above the key level, we want to continue to look out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of buying these assets. So since price remains above the key level, let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame and let's see if the market will give us a signal of buying opportunities. So right here on the 1 hour time frame, so I will just zoom right into the current structure, as this is where our center of focus is going to be for this week. Now look at what we have here. We have the resistance line for the week situated at the 14,740 level. So you do want to be marking out that level on your chart, 740. Okay, so we have the resistance line there. And then we, hold on a second, please. And then we have the support line of that range at the 14,665. So I want to mark this level. Beautiful. So you want to be marking out these levels on your chart. So we saw what happened here. Considering the fact that price still remains above that demand zone, it makes quite a lot of sense looking out for buying opportunity here. Now, though the week started with a indecisive situation here, as we saw price trapped within that range between the 14,740 and the 14,665, giving us an indecisive phase. And you know how we do it. Whenever we have a flat channel like this, we want to exercise some patience, waiting for either a breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. And with the scenario we have here, we already cited the breakout of that 14,740 with an engulfing bullish candle to incite a bullish momentum here. So for those who are taking advantage of this one, well done to you for being on standby to capitalize on that move. However, if you had missed out on that opportunity, it's okay. The week is still very early. From a technical standpoint, whenever price breaks out of a key structure such as the 14,740 in this case scenario, there are tendencies that price action could still come back and retest that structure in anticipation of an uptrend scenario. So let's remain patient here and see if the market will come back to retest that structure, hence we can join that bullish uptrend scenario. But what happens if price does not come back and retest the structure and instead it continues to find higher highs here? Then we shall look out for new structures. And if we look at this structure closely, we have another level that we shall be using to guide our trading activity, which falls exactly at the 14,820 area. Now, this level has been a major determinant of price action during the second half of last week. We saw how it was a strong buying niche. At some point, we saw buy pressure around that area before that level was broken to the downside. And right now that the market is gradually approaching that level, we want to see how it would react to that area. Will it turn out to be another buying zone where a breakout retest of that level will be welcoming more buying opportunities in this market? And if price starts finding selling pressure around that area, then we want to wait for price to come back, retest the structure, where we shall be looking out for more buying opportunities to join the uptrend continuation. So I would like to mark out this level here at the 14,820, which of course you want to do that as well, as it's going to be serving as a reference point to guide our trading activity for today. So we continue to look out for buying opportunity here. We already have a bullish signal for the week, and if price goes on to break out of the 14,820, we shall be looking forward to adding more position to our existing trade. Now, with the potential of the buyers duly marked out on our chart, remember that we are not going to neglect the potentials of sellers too. Now, remember during the course of last week, I showed you here on the 4 hours time frame, price action has been on a very strong bearish momentum. We had a descending trend line, descending channel in that regard. Let me show you one more time. So we can see that throughout last week's trading session, we saw our price since the beginning of this month, actually, price had consistently found lower lows and lower highs. So we cannot ignore how strong the sellers are and the potential of breaking down that key level at the 14,600, and of course the ascending trend line we identified on the higher time frame. So if we are going to be selling here, we will need the ascending trend line to be broken to the downside. So let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame and see what it will look like for us to consider selling. Now, for us to consider selling here, this is the ascending trend line we spotted on the 4 hours time frame, on the daily time frame, sorry. So this is the ascending trend line we spotted on the daily time frame. So we will need this ascending trend line to be broken to the downside before we can start considering selling, which I doubt will happen. But if it does happen, we want to be on standby to capitalize on that move. So we want to see a breakdown happen before we sell. And remember that we're still within that very strong demand zone we identified on the 4 hours time frame. So we will need some significant confirmations before we jump into any sell position. So once the breakdown of that descent of the ascending trend line happens, we scale down into our lower time frame. It could be the 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 15 minutes time frame to look out for signs that sellers is likely going to be dictating the pace, at least for the first half of this week. And if that happens, we scale down, we look out for retest of structure, multiple selling pressure on that area before we jump into any sell position. Then we look out for more opportunities if price breaks down the 14,600 level, which happens to be our key level for this week. In fact, a breakdown of the 14,600 will be a significant signal that we can go bearish in this particular market. So let's see how the market will play out here. So we have a very simple setup on the chart right now. You do want to be marking out these levels, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your trading activity for this week. So let me zoom right in so that we can see things and do a quick recap on what I just said here. So we have observed a range going on right now, and I told you that as long as price remains above the 14,740, we remain bullish. And I told you how the potential of price coming back to retest the level that was broken is still there. So we still want to see if that happens to give us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade, and the further breakout of the 14,820 will welcome more buying opportunities. So we are looking out for buying opportunities above that 14,740, and the only condition that will make us sell here is for price to break down the 14,665, which also shares a confluence with that ascending trend line we identified on the daily time frame. So a retest of structure will be the confirmation we need. We join the move to the downside, then a further breakdown of the 14,600 level will welcome more selling opportunities. So this is how we are going to be capitalizing on any trading opportunities the market will be presenting to us for today. So if you have any questions as regards to what we talked about here, or you need further clarifications, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever, while you can also use that time to mark out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your trading activities for today. Okay, so I have comments from greetings from 8603, Babbies, I hope I pronounced that correct. Okay, Babbies 1516, and good morning to you. Thank you for checking in. So in the absence of no questions, I will take this as a confirmation that we are all on the same page. So we shall be moving right into the next asset on our watch list. So the next asset on our watch list for today is the GBPUSD, and in fact I have a break-even situation here this morning, as I took advantage of a selling opportunity this morning, and price took me out at break-even, and I'm still anticipating more selling opportunities. So let's run through what really incited the idea of selling, and to do that we want to scale up into the higher time frame so that we can look at things from an holistic standpoint and at the same time be on the same page together. So right here on the daily time frame on the GBPUSD, if we look at what has been going on here since the beginning of the year, it is quite clear that price action has been bullish, and in fact we have a couple of trend lines that we have connected after connecting the series of higher lows here to give us something to work with. And in fact, since the month of February, price action had consistently respected that ascending trend line, giving us an insight into the strong bullish momentum in this market. Now, in addition to that trend line, we have a key level situated at the 1.26700 area, and in fact this key level has been a major determinant of price action since the month of May. Now if we go to as far back as May, we saw how that level was a strong selling niche at some point, you will see here. Then we saw the breakout happen in the month of June, and in fact it came back to retest that structure, and since that moment price action has remained above that level at the 1.267. Now, if you see what happened here at the beginning of the month, we saw buy pressure again. And in the last couple of weeks now, price action has been trading or rejecting the 1.267. Now, look at this area here. There is a beautiful confluence with that ascending trend line we identified earlier, giving us a crucial juncture on the market where, depending on how price action reacts to this level, would determine where price is likely going to be going. And in fact, we have a balance around this area where both buyers and sellers have a potential of pushing price in their favor. But one thing we know and do here in this community is that since price still remains above that ascending trend line, we're going to look out for buying opportunities. Now, if price breaks down the ascending trend line, then at this point we will start considering selling to the downside. But now, with the information we have gathered here on the 1 hour time, on the daily time frame, I would like us to scale down into the 1 hour time frame to see how participants in this market has been reacting to the zone since the beginning of this week. Now, if we scale down into the 1 hour time frame, I was able to identify a couple of structures here which we shall be using. So the first thing first here is this ascending trend line, which has been holding this bullish momentum here, though price action has been very indecisive in the last couple of weeks. But within that indecisive phase, we have signs that buyers are gradually gaining momentum, as you will notice higher lows in this particular market. So I connected this one to give me the structure here. So price remains above that ascending trend line, as you will see. And in fact, I have a couple of trend lines here. Let me zoom in. So we have this other one, which I will give a lighter pixel at this point. Now, with the way things are going right now, let's zoom in to see what has been going on since the beginning of today. So now the first thing we've observed here is price action has been consolidating confined within a range between the 1.275 and the 1.27250 to further emphasize the level of indecision at this point. Now, you know how we do it whenever we have a flat range. We want to wait for a signal in the form of either a breakout of the resistance line to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown of the support line to give us an opportunity to sell. And in fact, I actually saw the breakdown of the support line happen here, which triggered my sell position. And in fact, price moved about 15 pips in my favor. I moved the stop loss to break even, and in fact, I was taken out of that position, giving me signs that we might likely be seeing a bullish momentum trigger at this point in time. Now, if you look at the structure, price remains above our key level. This is the key level here at the 1.271. This is my new key level for the week. As long as price remains above this level, we feel confident in the buy position. And if price action continues to remain above this level, then a breakout of the highest level for this week at the 1.275 will be welcoming buying opportunities here. And in fact, a breakout of the 1.275 would have also broken out of this descending trend line that has been supporting this bearish momentum since last week Thursday. So a breakout of both the trend line and the 1.275 will be all we need to be part of a uptrend continuation here. So let's capitalize on this uptrend opportunity. So we wait for price to break out, retest of structure to join an uptrend scenario at this point. Then if price action goes on to break out of the 1.278, then we will be looking out for more opportunities to maximize the potential of that bullish move. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunities, we cannot ignore the potentials of sellers too. Now, for me to sell here, I'm looking at selling below the 1.271, which of course shares a confluence with that ascending trend line, as a breakdown of that 1.271 would have also broken down that ascending trend line and retest of structure, confirming that sellers are likely going to be dictating the pace. But I sold here. The reason why I sold here is I felt because of this descending trend line that we have here, that price action will continue to find lower lows and lower highs to push price to the downside. So I wanted to capitalize on that move even before the breakdown of that ascending trend line happens, so that I can maximize that move. But unfortunately, you can see it never happened, as price action came back into the entry point, and luckily enough for me, I had my stop loss in place, taken out at break even. So at this point in time, things are looking very, very bullish here. Look at the nature of this sharp rejection of that key level at the 1.271, giving us an hammer candle, which from a technical standpoint is a very strong signal that buyers are very present here. So if I want to sell at this point, I would rather wait for a breakdown of the 1.271 and that descending trend line to join any selling opportunities at this point. Then we have our stop losses situated for that sell position just right above the 1.27250, which will be dovetailing to about 15 pips. So let's see how the market will play out here. So we have a range. So we have the 1.275, which will be guiding our buying opportunities in this market. And we also have the 1.271, which will be guiding our selling opportunities in this market. So you do want to be marking out this level and be on standby to capitalize on that move. But instinct is telling me that it's going to be more of a bullish expectations here, as I look forward to that breakout of that resistant line at the 1.275. So let's see how this will play out. We shall be back again here tomorrow to review how well this asset has been doing. So if you have any questions whatsoever as regards to this current setup, or as regards to my illustration so far, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I will be taking the next 10-15 seconds to wait for questions, and you can as well use that time to mark out these levels on your chart. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are on the same page, so we shall be moving right into the next financial assets on our watch list. So the next asset on my watch list for today is the XAUUSD, which is my favorite and popularly known as the gold spot. And in fact, I'm looking forward to buying opportunities here. But let's run through the higher time frame quickly and see what led to the idea of considering buying at this juncture in this market. So the first thing here is I think I went to as far as the daily time frame. I think, let's see. Okay, I think it's on the 4 hours time frame. I started my analysis for the XAUUSD, and what I did here was to take into consideration the nature of price action since the beginning of this month. And of course, it is quite clear that price action has been on a very strong bearish momentum, and to further emphasize the strength of the sellers, I was able to connect the series of lower highs to give us a couple of descending trend line, which of course we shall be using to guide our trading activity for today and for this week, of course. Now, in addition to that, that is not where our center of focus will be right now. Our center of focus will be around the nature of price action throughout the second half of last week. Now, despite the strong bearish momentum in this market, despite the strong lower lows and lower highs, we noticed that as soon as price broke down the 1,896 level, a level which was initially a buying niche at some point, as you will see here on Tuesday, we saw buy pressure resume around that area, and not until it was broken on Wednesday. And since the breakdown on Wednesday, price action had been trading below the 1,896 to emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point in time. However, despite the strong selling presence in this market, you will notice that as soon as price action tested the lowest point in a while now, that is the 1,885, we begin to see buy pressure resume around that area. And in fact, the inability for price action to find a new low is a sign that we might likely be seeing the potential buildup of buy pressure behind the scenes. Now, look at what happened along the 1,885 on Thursday. We saw buy pressure resume around this area. And in fact, since the week began, sellers are yet to be able to break down the 1,885, giving us clues that we might likely be seeing a reversal pattern here. Now, if we take a step further to look at it from an holistic standpoint, looking at the strong impulsive move that brought us to this point at the 1,885, price came into the 1,896, price came back here, and the inability of price action to break down the previous low is likely going to be giving us a double bottom structure, which from a technical standpoint is a strong reversal pattern. Now, whenever we start identifying the potential transition of price action into a reversal pattern, you know the next thing we want to be doing is to identify the neckline, projected neckline, which we shall be using to validate that reversal pattern. So coincidentally, we have a neckline situated at that resistance line of that range at the 1,896, and you know what we want to be waiting for. A breakout of that neckline will be all we need to confirm that we have a reversal pattern to join an uptrend continuation. Now, one interesting thing about that neckline is the fact that it also shares a confluence with both of the descending trend line. You see this descending trend line here? You see another one right here. So for me personally, a breakout of the neckline will in fact confirm that the bullish momentum has come to stay, as that breakout will also have breaking out of that descending trend line, which of course the breakout of that descending trend line would be the first time price would have breaking out of that descending trend line in the last 2 to 3 weeks now. And that will be a good sign that the trend line may no longer have the capacity to continue to negate that bullish attempt, giving us a very beautiful opportunity to capitalize on buying opportunities. Now, look at the distance between where price is right now and that neckline area. We have about 80 pips to catch there. So are we going to wait for the old 80 pips to happen before we jump into a position? I was thinking of capitalizing on this bullish momentum by getting into that trend early enough so that we can maximize the uptrend scenario. And to do that, I want to see if we can get hold of buying opportunities within this area. So to do this, we shall be scaling down into the lower time frame to see how market participant has been reacting to the zone. Of course, sellers have been finding it difficult to break down the 1,885, so we will be looking out for buying opportunity here. The only condition that will make us sell at this point in time is for price action to drop below the 1,885. Then we can now consider selling. But if price still remains above the 1,885, we shall continue to look out for buying opportunities. So scaling down into the 1 hour time frame, this is what I was able to spot here this morning. So let me just zoom right in so that we can see things clearly. So the first thing I did here was to acknowledge this range. You will see price action has been trading between the 1,891 and the 1,885 to emphasize the level of indecision at this point in time. Now, when we have a range like this, you know how we do it in this community. We want to wait patiently for a signal to come, which of course will either come in the form of a breakdown of the support line at the 1,885 to join a bearish opportunity, or the breakout of the resistance line at the 1,891 to join buying opportunities. Now look at what has been going on here. We already cited the breakout of that resistance line at the 1,891, which for me is a sign that we are likely going to be seeing a bullish momentum. And in fact, it gives us clues that buyers have a potential of breaking out of that structure. Now, one interesting thing about the 1,891 here is the fact that it also shares a confluence with that descending trend line that you will notice here. So we have a descending trend line here, which we identified on the 4 hours time frame, which also shares a confluence with that resistance line for that range. So a breakout of this 1,891 would have also broken out of that descending trend line, giving us a sweet opportunity to join a bullish momentum. So I want to be positioning myself just right above the 1,891 since we already have a breakout of structure already. So this might likely be a retracement of that breakout, and let's position ourselves above the 1,891 to capitalize on an uptrend situation here. Now, if price action continues to climb and find higher highs, a further breakout of the 1,896, which also shares a confluence with that descending trend line we identified on the 4 hours time frame, will welcome more buying opportunities. So this is how we shall remain bullish on the XAUUSD for today's trading session. So I hope that we'll be on standby to capitalize on that move. Now, in as much as we're looking out for buying opportunity, don't let's get too excited and forget that sellers have been dictating the space for the last 3 to 4 weeks now. And because of the character of selling pressure around this area, let's consider the potentials of sellers too, and what is it that will happen on this chart that will make us want to consider selling this particular asset. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I told us of how the 1,885 has been negating all sellers' attempt to break through that area, hereby giving us a support line to work with for this week. So for us to consider selling here, we would need price action to slice through that support line at the 1,885, which would be a good signal to join a bearish opportunity. And if price continues to come back and retest structure, give us selling pressure, then this will welcome more opportunity to maximize the potential of that bearish move. So you can see here that we have a simple setup that we want to be using to guide our trading activity for today. So our center of focus is between the 1,891 and the 1,885, which you of course want to be marking out on your 1 hour time frame, as this is what we shall be using to guide our trading activities, at least for the first half of the week. And I went on to explain that if to look out for selling opportunities here, which I doubt will happen, is a breakdown of the 1,885 would be the signal we look out for to sell. However, a breakout of the 1,891, which also shares a confluence with that descending trend line, will be what we'll look out for to buy. And from the way things are looking at this point, it's looking more bullish for me personally, and I'm of the opinion that the tendency of a breakout of the 1,891 and that descending trend line is more likely than the breakdown of the 1,885. But the market has its own ways. We shall remain patient, waiting for the market to tell us where it wants to be going before we jump into any position. Now remember that today is just the first day of the week. The week is still very, very early, and there are tendencies of compulsive trading to happen. So we do want to be very, very patient and wait for our structures to mature before we jump into any position. So let's see how this will play out, and we shall be back again tomorrow to review how well this asset has been doing. So it's on this note I would like to call it a day here, but before I do, let's take some 10 to 15 seconds and see if there are any questions whatsoever as regards to this current setup or what we have discussed so far since the beginning of today. So if there are any questions, we've attended to about 4 pairs now. We talked about the USOILSPOT, we talked about the USTech100, we talked about the GBPUSD, and of course the XAUUSD, which is popularly known as the NASDAQ. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I'll be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds, and if you can use that time to mark out these levels on your chart. while we get prepared to round off for today. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here. So I'm very confident that we are well prepared for the New York session today, as we treated four financial assets: the US All Sports, the USTech 100, popularly known as the NASDAQ, the GBPUSD, and of course the XAUUSD, popularly known as the gold spot. And all of these assets we were able to identify simple setups using parameters such as trend lines, key levels, and of course chart patterns to gain valuable insights into the historical price movement of all of these instruments. So I implore us, I hope you have marked out these levels on your chart, and I implore us to remain very patient, waiting for the structures to mature before we jump into any position here. So it's on this note I would like to wish us all the best of luck, and for those who are joining us for the first time, I do hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discuss here. Trust me, the more time you spend with us, the better you get in understanding how this works, and eventually be able to use the information you have gathered here to make your independent trading decision. So I look forward to seeing more of you. Same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as we come here again to review how well this asset has been doing, and at the same time get ready for tomorrow's trading session. So it's on this note I wish you all the best of luck, and do have a wonderful and beautiful evening. Bye bye.